Helps if I turn the mic on. Hey everybody, how's it going? Well, today we got a different setup than we normally do. We won't be covering a video today. Today we're actually I'm joined with Atheist Pastor and Vagrant Sam, and we're like I said, we're a little different. We're going to be talking about problems we have with the Book of Genesis. Um, so this could be an interesting conversation because like everybody either has everything wrong with it or just some pieces wrong with it. This story, that story. So, but first off, I'm gonna do some housekeeping stuff. So first off, we're gonna introduce the panel. Atheist Pastor, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us what you do.
Oh, I'm Chris. I'm also known as the Atheist Pastor. So I'm a former Christian leader who, so to speak, saw the light and deconverted. I sort of make it my mission to help as many people out of religion and assist with the transition. So I guess let people know that there's support there for them.
And you were getting your bachelor's in theology? Is that what you were gonna?
So I was doing a bachelor in theology and also a bachelor in ministry. Funnily enough, it was Genesis that started me asking a few questions, and it all sort of went downhill from there, so to speak.
Cool.
And how when you read the Bible, you discover it's just full of horseshit.
Yeah.
And I should check. Am I allowed to swear on the channel?
Oh, absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's already marked not safe for kids. So, because you never know where it goes. Yeah. And we also have Vagrant Sam. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what you do, man.
Hey, I'm another new YouTuber, and I basically just look at, I guess, trying to share some of the things that I learned when I was going through my own deconversion as well. So similar to Atheist Pastor, I was also studying a Bachelor of Theology, which is when I wouldn't say I became an atheist, but I stopped being a Christian. And then it's the things that I learned during that Bible college journey that sort of really helped me on the path to where I eventually became completely atheistic in relation to God. So yeah, and then I finally decided to do a YouTube channel. So
Well, yeah, I've seen some of you guys' stuff. Been on what 2 shows now with you guys, so
yeah,
lots of fun.
Yeah. Always good for Friday night drinks, mate.
Yeah.
Or Friday morning for you. It's always a very impressive effort.
Yeah. So cool. Well, some housekeeping on my end. This will be my last video stream or whatever under the name End the Conspiracy. I will be changing it to ETC. Hopefully the Twitter gods will promote me a little better, because when you type in End the Conspiracy, unless you're looking for channel, I don't pop up. In most of my videos, when you look for them, you really got to scroll down a whole bunch. So hopefully changing the name will fix the algorithm a little bit. I'm hoping. Most people just call me ETC anyways, and it's just shorter than End the Conspiracy. So there's that. I have found a gentleman. His name is Ross Burns. He's a Christian, little channel. He's only got like 14 subs. He's a really nice guy. I've actually talked to him on Twitter, and I'll be doing a couple cover videos on his stuff here coming up. And then hopefully after this is done sometime tonight, I'll finish up on my next symbols video, and that one's on the pentagram. Excuse me. God of Imagination. Now, for those of you who don't know, God of Imagination was one of my very first subs. He's been with me the entire trip. He's a really nice guy, really funny. He just said, "Oh my God, how will I find the channel?" Oh wait, I'm subscribed. So yeah, that's all I've got going on. Like I said, everything will be changing. Patreon names, I've already changed the Twitter, channel name, stuff like that. I'll get new intro. I don't know if I'm going to change the logo. I kind of like the ETC on top of the all-seeing eye, so that may just stay there. Doing some housekeeping and some change-ups here. So unless you guys got anything, we're going to kick over to the dumbass tweet of the week. Unless you guys got something.
That.
Yeah.
I'm all good.
All right.
No, I'm keen for this dumbass tweet of the week.
Oh, yeah.
Some good ones.
All right.
Never disappoint.
All right. So here we have is from Sakib Mir. It says, finally, Twitter is clearing up the rubbish. The out of control atheists with no knowledge of what criticism is or how to be civil with people. Atheists lack objective morality. That is why they have no clue how to behave. There's just so much wrong with this one. It's just, I mean, where do you? I don't understand where they get the atheists have no objective morality. Because,
probably because that's what they're getting told in the churches. They just regurgitate the same crap that they get told in the pews.
Yeah. Well, I do know this particular gentleman is Muslim. I don't know if that changes their outlook on things. I don't know much about the Muslim religion. Something about Muhammad in a mountain and riding a unicorn to split the moon in half, and
there's even a magic carpet ride in there.
Is there? Yeah, it's something I've been looking at, wanting to take a look at, but I just haven't. I'm not sure if I want to jump down that rabbit hole or not.
So the first half at least is the same.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
it's I can assure you, it's just as horrible as the Bible.
That's what I've heard. So yeah, there's well, God of Imagination says there are genies in Islam too.
Yeah, the jinn.
Yeah. So yeah, that was our dumbass tweet. One last look at it, see if we really want to dig any more, because it's just it's stuff like this that for me that just makes it so. Some of the religious people just you're going, you just know.
It ends the conversation. Like as soon as there's the idea of you're not objectively moral.
Yeah.
Because objective morality is Allah or God. That is objective morality. You don't even get to have a discussion at that point. So you know what they want to talk about objective, and it's just frustrating because it's not a dialogue there. It's just them shouting what they want to shout, what they want to put out there, and they don't want to listen to the other team because, hey, you don't have God, so you've got no basis. It's fun times.
And when they talk about objective morality as well, I mean, their objective morality says it's okay for a 50-year-old man to marry a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
So,
there was that. I wasn't going to bring that up because I wasn't exactly sure if that was the actual case or had I heard it wrong or.
I believe what it was, and fact check me on this, but I believe they got married or betrothed when she was 6. But you know, being the good guy he is, he didn't consummate it until she was 9. So different times, obviously, but yeah, that's they say that they should live like the prophet lived, and that's probably not a good place to start. So I'll go with atheistic, non-objective morality any day.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, there's the morals. You just look at the well, you guys know, just the Christian morality itself. You're just going, no, thanks.
You can't read Christian morality at face value.
Yeah,
exist in today's society. Like it's just incompatible. And so the fact that it gets presented as if the idea of morality, which is I will treat other people well in the way I want them to be treated. Bible got that right, great. But all the other stuff it doesn't get right, and then they try to argue that we can't use outcomes as a justification for behavior. And I say it's not all Christians. Like,
yeah, I know. I do know quite a few Christians that aren't douchebags.
Yeah, like the ones that, you know, they change their stance on, you know, topics like homosexuality, gay marriage, and all that sort of stuff. Churches change their stance on that, but it's not because of the objective morality of the Bible. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, well, we'll take a look and see who we got in the chat. We've got Raven, always, you know, lovely wife. She's always here. She's a stalker. D3 was here. I don't know if he's still here. For those of you who don't know who D3 is, it's Digital Demonic Davros. Of course, we mentioned God of Imagination, Atheist Pastor. and yeah, me and Sam. So, and
All the important people are here.
yeah, I do know, that I am competing with Team Skeptic, Steve McRae, Neil the 604 Atheist. The shills were on. I don't know if they're still on. Junk Shop Library just got over. So this is unfortunately with my work schedule, unless I want to do it at like 2:00 in the morning, this is pretty much the good time for me. So yeah.
We need to get on Australian time. We've got no competition.
Yeah.
No one's watching, but
No
there's no competition.
Yeah, nobody's watching, but you got no competition. So, all right, yeah, cool. Well, Bobby I'm waiting for Bobby. Cool. Bobby Leggero will be popping in with us too. I don't know if do you guys know Bobby?
No.
Yeah, not specifically.
All right. Bobby's good peeps. I like Bobby. Let me send him the link here real quick. All right, so Bran from the Geek Room popped in. Hey, Bran. That's good. Have you guys seen the Geek Room?
No.
Oh,
Yeah, it doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah.
Sounds like the kind of place I'd probably enjoy though.
Yeah, they're really funny guys. Frank and Billy and Bobby and Anna. Bullinator is the producer. Dave McGinnis is there.
Cool.
So yeah, it's really good. They're really funny stuff. So yeah, if you get a chance, pop over and check them guys out. Brandon, don't watch it. It's bad for you. So Bran,
lots of things that are bad for you, Bran.
Yeah, Bran actually does. He's got his own channel, Bloody Breakdown, where he discusses horror movie stuff.
Oh, nice.
So if you guys are into horror movies, take a look at Bloody Breakdown too. That's good stuff there. So
horror movies.
Yeah, and Robert Leggero is part of a panel called Going Critical. If you guys have heard of them, that's a good. They talk about a lot of different woo stuff. That's Jim Bojo, 1 Minute Debunk, Anthony Bailey, Carissa Brock, Bobby, and Christian Frost Laser Beams. So yeah, the good people. I was on their show a couple of weeks ago back. I don't remember. We were talking about Freemasons and the Illuminati. So, and then
it's always a fun one.
Yeah, tomorrow their show tomorrow. They're gonna be talking from, if I understand it right, they're gonna be talking about Nibiru and Planet X. So always interesting. Yeah, they're on at. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby. I believe they're on at 5:30 Eastern p.m. So I'm not sure what time that is for you guys. So
about 11:30.
Yeah. So yeah, good group of guys. So now the housekeeping's all done. We've introduced the chat. Chris told us I can never pronounce his name right. Chris is in the chat too. Hey, Chris. So let's get this started. So who wants to start with one of your biggest issues with the Book of Genesis? Nobody?
we'll all jump in.
We start with you, Sam. What's one of your biggest hang-ups on the Book of Genesis?
My biggest hang-up is probably the Sodom and Gomorrah story. God, I hope I've got that right. That's the right book, right? We're in the right book here. Sodom and Gomorrah. Yeah, that was Genesis. It is the most difficult story I found when I was in church to get a positive story out of, like to actually figure out how do you turn this into a positive when Lot's wife looked back and God was like, fuck you, you're a pillar of salt. Like, how dare you look back at your home? You're dead. Like, that to me was like really difficult to pass in terms of the loving, forgiving God that you sort of get presented initially through, the story of Jesus, New Testament, all that sort of stuff. That sort of vengeful and petty act felt really inconsistent. And in context, I never specifically took things like the story of creation as literal necessarily. It existed in a funny area, so that's the reason why, like, the creation story being completely ridiculous isn't at the top of the list. It's because that was sort of easy to use apologetics to explain away. Whereas, I remember stories about, I remember sermons about Lot's wife, and, never look back, always look forward, don't look at your old life, you got to look forward to the life God's got for you. And that's how that story was co-opted into being a positive and manipulative story about, not doubting. But yeah, I always had a problem with the fact that God just ended someone's life like that. And apparently it was a good moral story that we could teach from at the pulpit. So.
And when you look at it too, with that story in particular, Lot is apparently the most the most moral man in the city, and his family is the only ones who are worthy of being saved. But the first thing that happens is when they escape, his daughters get him drunk and have sex with him. So if that's the most moral guy that God could find, or God's idea of great morality, then, well, I mean, there's an issue there in itself.
And this is after the was it Lot who offered his daughters to the mob instead of the angels that came to form the city?
Yeah. No, he offered his daughters to the rape mob, and they thanked him by getting him drunk and having his children.
The whole story of Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah is just, it boggles the mind. It's really difficult to understand what mind space I was in where I accepted it as not a roadblock to belief, but
part of the mental gymnastics we do. Well, we did.
I mean, that's why you don't hear it much from the pulpit. So
my biggest thing, I haven't studied obviously as much as you guys have, but for me, the issue with him turning his Lot's wife into salt, it never made any sense to me. She's lived there for how many years? She's friends and family, and he doesn't expect her to look back.
Yep.
And
it's that funny. I say funny. It's that real vengeful Old Testament God who's extremely jealous. Like, the Old Testament God is always jealous of everything that comes in between, you worshiping him and anything else. Like, the way he treats the Israelites throughout the Old Testament is, I'm a jealous God, I'm a vengeful God, don't mess with me, or I'll deliver you to the enemies, I'll deliver you to Egypt, I'll leave you in the desert for 40 goddamn years. But for whatever reason, that one about Lot's wife, because it was such a small thing, and a pillar of salt was such a weird one. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of any reason why salt was the outcome, but I've never come across myself any specific.
Yeah, I've never understood the whole pillar of salt thing. But I honestly, though, every time I hear about Sodom and Gomorrah, I can't help but think of Dogma. So
I love that movie.
It's a great movie.
Shameful secret, I've never watched it.
It's a great movie.
I was a devout Christian at the time, so it sort of just
put it on your list of things to watch. You won't regret it.
Yeah, I think the only Jesus I'd have in my house is definitely the Buddy Christ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Buddy, and George Carlin is the preacher, which is great. But that's a different topic. So, what about you, Chris? What part of Genesis bugs you the most?
Well, see, one of my favorite bits, and I dug into it a little bit, and it almost proves a different take on the Bible from the Bible right at the start. So Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the word for God was actually Elohim. Now, Elohim directly translates to those who came from the sky. So instead of he or the one who came from the sky, which would be Elohah. So what that actually implies to me is that originally, and from an archaeological point of view as well, it's shown that Judaism was actually a polytheistic religion. So from the very beginning of Genesis, you've got issues straight away.
Yeah, because isn't it in the thou shalt have no other gods before me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and there's so much mention of other gods, and You know, it's even, I guess, you move on to things like Exodus, where, you know, they're all wandering the desert for 40 years in what's a 5-day walk. They've got God feeding them and providing them with everything. Yet the second Moses goes up a hill, they decide to worship a calf.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, originally, so that was one that it was a bit of a sticking point for me, especially when I was getting into, and I'm not even going to pretend that I did a lot with the ancient languages. But I remember that was always a sticking point for me, the Elohim being the those who came from the sky rather than the one or he who came from the sky.
Yeah,
and it's often answered in a way where they say, well, it's a regal term. So, like, when, for instance, when the Queen says, you know, we are not amused, that was the apologetic that was given back. But the only problem with that is, well, not the only problem, but the problem with that is the we are not amused, and the way that's used is actually very much an English language rather than an ancient Hebrew or Aramaic. So it doesn't actually apply there. So straight off the bat, Genesis 1:1, there's your first issue.
I see. My biggest problem with Genesis is the Adam and Eve story. That's the one that gets me the most. I mean, where every person is being that have came after Adam and Eve is being punished because Eve and Adam ate from the fruit. So now everyone until Revelations is being punished for the sins of two people.
Yeah, original sin is like, it is the biggest issue with Christianity, but yeah.
And here's the thing, and almost you can disprove the Bible and the basis of Christian belief from that story, because so they've committed the original sin, they've disobeyed God, and by eating the apple, she gains a knowledge of right and wrong. But she didn't know right and wrong before that. So has she sinned? If she doesn't know whether what she's doing is right or wrong, because she doesn't have a concept of that, doesn't that null and void it?
Yeah, and that's part of the thing too. Is like, wait, they didn't know it was wrong. Just because he said don't eat from this, that doesn't mean, you know, they didn't know right from wrong. So how do they know that that's wrong for them to eat the fruit just because he said don't do it? Well, they're not going to know that's wrong if they, you know, go ahead and eat the fruit.
Yeah, they don't have that concept. So it's and look, a lot of it is stolen from the ancient Sumerian tales. It's rewritten versions of those ancient Sumerian tales, but it was actually the earliest archaeological, I guess, evidence of the Old Testament existing. So everything from Genesis on, it isn't 1400 BC like the Christian apologists will tell you. It's actually around about 500 or 600 BC. And it all pretty much came out at around the same time. So sort of a similar era to when I guess David and Solomon were around, and I guess the religion was the foundations of the religion were very much being put in place. And what they've done is, it looks as though that, I guess, from a purely historical and archaeological point of view, is they've just picked and chosen bits and pieces of other religions and other beliefs that were around, and kind of then put it into what they needed for their, I guess, to combine with their history, their oral history, and I guess what worked for their political situation at the time.
Yeah, because they're saying but the commandments, most of those are from the laws of Hammurabi.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like right there's another one, and then Noah's flood, that's basically taken from
Gilgamesh.
The Epic of Gilgamesh.
Epic of Gilgamesh, yeah.
I can't remember the guy's name.
Marduk. Was that it?
Was it not? It's not Marduk. It's Anupashtu or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, you know, with him with the flood, and then jumping in the big pot or whatever type of thing. You know, so I mean, you look back at the book of Genesis itself, and there's so many. You can tell they plagiarized so much from other religions, which is not uncommon. I mean, we'll look at, you know, Islam, Mormonism, you know, stuff like that. They're plagiarizing off of the Bible itself, but then they're twisting it to fit their narrative with what they want to do. And I mean, even the flying spaghetti monster picks off of Scientology. So, you know, there's depending on what, you know, Haley's, you know, not Haley, Heaven's Gate, you know, with the angels, and you know, it just everybody is going. You're not going to get, and unless you were the very first religion, yours will never be true to itself. You're going to.
There's always going to be derivations from other things.
From other things, yeah. So
and it was always just an understanding, I guess, or a lack of understanding of basic scientific principles. You'll notice that worldwide, the generally the main god or the most powerful god will end up being the lightning god. So I guess, you know, Zeus, Thor, Yahweh, who was the lightning god of the Hebrews, and that's because that bolt coming from the sky, and that's where the god in the clouds concept comes from, because it was just, that's the only way they could explain it back then, because they didn't have the scientific understanding of, you know, why clouds occur, how the atmosphere works, how you know, lightning bolts are produced. So the only explanation they could come from that was, we've done something, we've angered the god, and we're being punished.
Chris in the chat says the marriage is between one man and one woman claims in Genesis, but if you read further into it, there's polygamy in just a few chapters.
Oh yeah, and marriage with your slave, and marriage with your wife's slave, and the handmaidens, and, you know, the prisoners of war, and
yeah, which one of the stories, I may be going into a different book, but it wasn't it like kill all the men and the boys, but keep the women and the children and the little girls.
Yeah, Numbers 19, I believe that is. So yeah, that's where the they go and they wipe out the Amalekites, and the Amalekite women go down the day before they're about to go and wipe them out to basically have sex with them all, to say, hey, look, you can have your way with us, just leave us all alone and go on your way. And because of that, well, God says, well, they've all gone and sinned. So it was, yeah, kill all the men, all the women, and the children, except for the female virgins, who you can have for yourself. So, and you can put 2 and 2 together. I know the churches will then go and say, oh, well, no, they were raising them, and that was out of love, and they were brought up in loving Hebrew families. But read between the lines. Well, you don't even need to read between the lines. It's it's black and white.
And it doesn't matter. Like, even if you have a charitable reading and you go, well, yes, they then raised them in chastity and good faith, they still killed and destroyed their city, their culture, their people. Like, that still doesn't balance the scales, like, even if you want to be charitable like that. So it's a ridiculous apologetic, even if you go the most generous reading possible.
Fortunately, the evidence shows that it probably didn't happen.
Oh yeah, no, and that's the thing. And
well, you look at the contradictions and stuff. I mean, just look at the Adam and Eve story itself. In one, what was it? It was he made them together, and then in a different one, it was Adam, and then it was Eve. Or am I getting that wrong? I mean,
no, I think it was always Eve came from the rib of Adam. So because Adam couldn't find a suitable sexual partner from the animals, they cloned Adam and gave him a wife.
Where does the Lilith come in? Is that a later canon type of thing? Because I know she's not mentioned in the Bible.
Lilith isn't canon. It's extra biblical sources that arose from tradition. And so what was it? She did something. I forget what it was she did, but she was meant to become like a demon or the first vampire, and that's all extra biblical stuff. It's not a result of stuff that's in Genesis.
Is she in is it Enoch, the book of Enoch she was in, or is that where that story came from?
She was meant to be the first wife of Adam, and then it didn't work out. I don't remember it being in Enoch, but it's been a while. So
yeah, Raven says it was removed. Probably, I say, like you were saying in the book of Enoch, we didn't make it through the Council of Nicaea. From what I understand, I said that I'm not as versed in this as you guys, or as Raven. she knows a lot more about this than I do.
If it helps, you're not really missing anything.
Yeah, I know. Now, one of the things that pop up a lot is the flood. I want to get your guys' take on the flood. So if we want to start with Chris, if you want to start first, what is your take on the whole Noah flood story?
It's ripped straight from the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's and in the Epic of Gilgamesh, it wasn't a worldwide flood; it was a localized flood. They've just basically taken the story and put their own slant on it. There's absolutely zero archaeological or historical pieces of evidence for it. And sorry, when I talk about historical, I'm actually I'm in the process, or I'm saying the process. I'm about to start my PhD in history. So, as far as the processes that are applied for researching and determining whether something's true, there is zero evidence that the flood ever happened and the story has any relevance. And most likely it's probably, you could almost say with 100% certainty that it didn't.
Sam?
Yeah, I think it's most likely just a localized flood. What were they, in the Mesopotamian floodplain where the story took place? And, an event happened and people explained it through this worldwide flood because the world as they understood it flooded, which is, how many miles squared sort of thing. We know that there's not enough water in existence to flood the planet. We know that if there was enough water, there's no evidence that it actually happened anyway. So yeah, pretty much okay with the flood not happening. And I think it's just, something catastrophic happened, like a natural disaster in an area of people that, it affected not just them, but the tribes to the north, south, east, and west, and therefore the world was flooded. That's probably what happened. And that's why there's so many flood stories. There's not just the Epic of Gilgamesh. There's other versions of it. Like there's versions where people turned into fish during the flood and then turned back into humans when the waters died down. I'm pretty sure there's another story where people took shelter in a giant shell while the waters rose above them, but there was air in the shell and things, and all these different myths that sort of support that a large flood event did happen, but like the size of your world at that time is like a couple of 100 miles, maybe. Not like today where we literally know what the globe is.
Just want to say, as an irony, while you're saying all that, your background in your Minecraft world, it's raining pretty heavy.
It's raining.
Oh, there we go.
I think the Lord is speaking to us.
It's not going to flood though. I think I'm okay. I'm on high ground. So
you're all good then.
We should be good.
Anyway. Couple comments from the chat real quick. Raven says there's a Native American story of a flood to rid the world of evil. The raven swam down and brought up a small piece back to the world. Then God of Imagination said, what did the Asian god do? What did Asian do, God? What did they do? I understand what he's saying. Like I said, that he's been with me from the start, so I mean
I'm not sure if there are many Eastern flood myths, are there?
I know there is, but I don't know specifics. Let's see.
I think probably one of the only cultures that doesn't have one is the Japanese.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because they're on an island, which would flood easy.
Well, you'd think so, yeah. Mount Fuji's pretty high up.
Yeah,
true. I suppose it's an archipelago, isn't it?
Yeah, and Mount Fuji is a beautiful. I've seen that a lot when I was stationed over in Japan. I never managed to go to it, but I actually seen it quite often.
Never been to it. I've seen it a few times though.
D3 says the Aboriginal flood story is from over 7,000 years ago.
Well, that's not right because the world's only 6,000 years.
and Australia doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's true. Chris says the ancient Greeks were fairly smart when they were taken into slavery. They would teach their owners' children everything Greek that they could. I think that's all we got from the chat at the moment. So, let's see, what was I going with this one next? I had notes and I forgot to save it. So when I X'd off it didn't save. Let's see.
There's a few things I was going to check up and I completely forgot.
Yeah. With the Noahs, with the flood story, the fact that it wasn't after the flood receded and then they all disembarked and whatnot, it really shortly that they went back to Egypt and there were people there.
Yeah.
It's like, well, where did that population come from then? If everybody but these 8 people were supposedly killed in the giant flood, where did all the people from Egypt come from?
So I can't remember which of the 3 sons it's through, but there is an apologetic that that will say that the Egyptians were the offspring of one of Noah's, or that people were from one of Noah's grandchildren, and they kind of, I think they just pull it out of their backsides, to be honest. But there is sort of lineages of, this one went to Egypt, and from extra biblical stories.
Yeah, but they would have had
the population wouldn't match.
Yeah, the population numbers would be too low.
They said they would have had to breed like rats and grow quickly.
It's almost as if it didn't happen and it wasn't true.
Yeah.
Surely not, but...
God of Imagination said they all just stayed on the tips of the pyramids. Let's see here. I'm not real familiar with the different stories from Genesis. I've been studying some of the Older Testament stuff. Like I always get Exodus and Genesis stories mixed up.
Yeah.
So is there anything other than what we've talked about else that you want to talk about? Like it was, I never remember. It was Job. Is that Genesis?
Job's its own book.
Yeah, Job's
its own book. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, Job's just the book of God being a complete dick.
Yeah.
That's actually
Tower of Babel's a good one.
Oh yeah, Babel.
Yeah, the Tower of Babel, where
was that Genesis too?
That's in Genesis.
I thought
shortly after the flood.
I thought Babel was Exodus.
No, I get them all confused as well because it's been like 12 years, so don't feel bad because I started it and I still can't tell it. Like I still can't figure out where one book ended and the other started necessarily. So,
well, it's So the Tower of Babel. That's where this is shortly after the flood, and actually this sort of leads on to where one of the grandsons went out to Egypt, and I guess where the history of that sort of is applied. So the towers, they decide to build this big tower up to the heavens so they can reach God. God says, well, hang on, no, if they get to where I am, that's not good. So he decides to use the language. So it's pretty impressive that 4,000 years ago they were able to build something that would have had to have been pretty tall because we've been out of the solar system now.
Well, yeah.
And, does it ever
past Pluto?
Did it ever say how big the tower was?
No, not that I can. I shouldn't say no. I don't remember.
I don't think it does. If it did, it was probably all in cubits. But I'll just have a quick.
It's one of those stories as well where, like, it takes some weird mental gymnastics to figure out why it was wrong for people to be doing this. Because God's his issue with it was that if people cooperate, there's no limit to what they can achieve. Like that was the sin. And this goes back to the whole jealous God. And this time it's people being able to get on without him. It's like, well, screw that. I'm going to make it so you can't cooperate and sow discord into the nations of the earth. So that way you guys will always need me because I am a jealous and abusive kind of partner. Did I distract them long enough for you to find the...
Now, I missed everything that was said there because it sort of went funny. Is that a me issue or is that a Sam issue?
I had no issues with Sam.
Yeah,
no,
that's your issue.
You're sounding a bit funny as well, so I think that's a me issue.
Might be you.
I think God's confusing our language.
Yeah, see, we're talking about the Tower of Babel and it's happening.
So a couple of quick comments from the chat. God of Imagination said it's because it was looking like a dick. Raven says it was the
bigger than God's.
Raven says it was the souvenirs that looked like the towers that did it in. Chris comments on Raven, so now we know what the original use for the Baghdad batteries was. And D3 says it went all timey-wimey.
Sorry, guys, bear with me just 1 second because
Yep.
I'm just trying to get my speakers sorted out. So,
All right. Well,
hang on. I think I've got you guys back.
you got us back.
Yep, excellent. It was making some strange noises, but I think it was actually the headphones themselves rather than anything. But anyway, that's a me problem.
You've been coming through clear, so at least your connection seems okay.
Yeah.
So, what were you going to say,
I think
Sam?
it was the headphones.
I forget. Sorry, completely distracted there. I did have a quick look at the other stuff in Genesis, and there's the whole Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. Wait, was that the musical? That's the musical.
That's the musical.
And also Isaac and Abraham and all that sort of stuff too. So there's actually quite a lot in Genesis that I forgot about, funnily enough. I knew it happened, just didn't know it was Genesis.
So I'm just looking at the Tower of Babel stuff. So it's Genesis 11. That's it doesn't say how tall it was, but then it kind of goes straight into the family lines after that, and that's where I think they came up with who went where and how they decided who went to Egypt.
The family lines, that's one of the things that just drove me nuts when I was reading through it.
Yep.
It's like, why are you spending so much time on telling who begot who begot who?
It's so you can count backwards and figure out the Earth's age. That's why it's in there.
That's the only thing that makes any sense. It's so you can count backwards to figure out how old the Earth was. But
one of the things they use it for is to trace Jesus's lineage back to David, and then David back to original sin. And so that's how they connect the idea of original sin and Jesus being able to make his sacrifice for all mankind. Doesn't make sense to us, but it's one of the things that it gets used for.
Also, I guess from an Old Testament point of view as well, the family lineage was very important in determining which tribe you were a part of, and they used to have the family lineages so they could know. They didn't like to, I guess, intermix out of their tribe often. So it's just a way that they used to trace it. But it was always an oral rather than the written history.
Yeah, you want to talk about a boring part of the book?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I've read it before, and then I was listening to an audiobook, and I was like, oh my Lord, can we fast forward through this part?
There needs to be an abridged version.
And don't you like the way that they always do it in those audio books, where it's and then Aphorax, who lived for 35 years and begat Simon. And Simon lived, and you just at that point you try not to fall asleep.
Yeah, you're like, I should put this on to go to sleep.
That's funny because I always just remember that, and I was just watching it this morning, that episode of The Simpsons where Homer's eating fugu, and he falls asleep listening to the Bible, and it's going through the begats at some point, and I just always think of that.
Now, another one that always gets me is, and I have yet. Maybe you guys can shed some light here. Where did Cain's wife come from?
Well,
because Cain was cast out after killing Abel, but then he went and then he had his own children. Where did the wife come from?
Well, the Bible actually implies that there were other people there at the time, because what it says is a mark was put on Cain, so other people would know not to kill him, but he was marked as a murderer.
But where did the other people come from?
It was made up.
Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel. Those are supposed to be the first four people.
Right. So here's the apologetic version of it, or at least one of the apologetic versions of it. Women aren't often specifically referred to in the Bible. So the fact that there's no mention of the daughters specifically, we don't know how many daughters Adam and Eve had. And one of the daughters probably was, well, you read it biblically and you read it answers in Genesis style that it's literal, then there's no other way for Cain to have a wife than for it to be a sister. And the church I went to actually taught at one point that the reason is back then it was okay for incest to occur because the genetic structure of humans was pure. And over time, that genetic structure degrades as people, it's like a photocopier. You make photocopies. It gets worse and worse and worse. And then it wasn't until some point in the Old Testament where God goes, okay, no more incest. The photocopy's too messed up. You now need to go away from your brothers and sisters. But that's how they justify that there was a wife for Cain back at the post Garden of Eden story, and why it was okay to burn your sister or brother. That's what I got taught. What did you get taught, Chris?
A similar sort of thing, that there were sisters that weren't mentioned. I heard, that also Eve may have been involved at some point. That basically there were sisters, and there was lots of other children that Adam and Eve had, but it was just the first couple that were mentioned.
Because you look at the same thing, and I'm going to get to a comment here from God Imagination in just a second. Well, hang on, maybe. Well, Raven kind of answered that one, so we'll just let that one go. But it goes back to the same thing with Noah's kids after the flood. It's like, how many people were them 8 people pushing out from just the 8 of them? I mean, to consider to repopulate the world. And I understand.
Quite a few, apparently.
Huh?
Quite a few, apparently.
Anyway, sorry, checking the comments. I understand that at the time they only realized what was in their general area, so there's no way they could have figured out what the Aboriginal people of Australia, the Aztecs and the Mayans, the Native Americans, other Europeans, stuff like that. But it may work for that area, but it doesn't work globally
for everything else. Yeah,
and this is. Go ahead, Sam.
This is one of the steps that I started to take at Bible college, which ultimately led to me not being in the church. Is that you start to read these documents as historical documents rather than theological treatises on the nature of God specifically. So, once you start to look at, okay, this is a localized account of an event that happened to these people, and the way they processed that event was this was an apocalypse sent by God to wipe out evil, and they're the only ones left. But we know that there's people just across the mountain range, and there's people on other continents, and you can kind of think something like that happened. And let's try and look at Christianity in that light and keep moving forward. But for me, that first step of this is no longer literal, that was, well, what is literal then? It all sounds like mythology. See you later.
Because you got to think at the time, you had not only did you have the people there in Egypt, in Israel and whatnot, you had the Greeks and the Romans also established, off a ways, and then eventually that civilization comes in to the Middle East. Well, they just didn't pop up in the last couple, 200 years. This is a civilization that's been there for many, many, many years, that has grown and populated and done so much to be able to do the conquering that they're doing. Those just didn't pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah. And you look at the history of China, it's massive. Like it doesn't fit into a biblical perspective.
Yeah. And even if you look at India, which was just sort of next door, or so to speak, the Bhagavad Gita predates, the flood. Or when the flood would have occurred. Just to correct it, the Romans, I don't believe, were around back at that point. I think the Romans were sort of. So it would have been just the Greeks then. Yeah. It was the Greeks were definitely around. They had all the city states, and the Persians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Sumerians. They were all around. Obviously, the Egyptians. So there was a lot of civilization that was floating around in the area at the same time.
Yeah, it just, when you look, if you take it for the tales, the Bible has got some really good stories, but you can't take them literally. It just does not fall into the reality of what's going on. Even at that time, it didn't fall into the reality of what was going on. And to be like how some of the Christians are so adamant about how, like Answers in Genesis, they are so adamant that this is exactly what happened. This is exactly how it all went down. It makes, like, okay, I never grew up in Christianity. I mean, I knew about it, I knew some stories about it, but it was never taught to me. So, from an outside perspective where I'm coming from, I can't see how anybody would fall into that web of lies, so to speak, and believe that it's actually true.
Because if it isn't true, and I guess this is my theological perspective on it, if it isn't true, then the Bible isn't, or the actual the whole purpose and the meaning behind the Bible can't be true. Because if Adam and Eve didn't literally exist, if sin isn't the reason, for the fall of man that Jesus eventually needed to redeem, then the whole thing it's you can't have one without the other. You have to have something for Jesus to redeem. So if the fall never happened, if the Garden of Eden wasn't a literal thing, then the whole Bible is debunked there and then. So from a Christian point of view, you need that to work. Otherwise, your faith is out the window, especially for the ones who have studied. So, I mean, look, you people like, say, you Ken Hams, even Ken Hove, and people like that, they've certainly studied the Bible, and they would have come to that conclusion. So that's when they start with the conclusion that the Bible must be true, and then they find things to make it work and fit within
Follow backwards.
that worldview.
Yeah, follow backwards through it.
Believe Jesus first, and then figure out the rest.
Exactly.
Yeah. Got imagination. Got imagination says the Vatican said that most of Genesis stories should be taken as spiritual and not physical history.
A lot of churches are there, I think. Like, I don't think that's super uncommon these days.
Yeah.
But it's still, once again, if it's not to be taken literally, then what was the point of Jesus?
Yeah. I just want to throw a shout out. We got a couple new people in the chat. Chris O, howdy. Mr. Anthony Bailey, how you doing? And Zach, from Atheist, is in the chat. How you doing, guys? Good to see you.
Hey, guys.
Hey, guys. Seems to be a lot of Chris's floating around today. Good name.
Raven says God has magical abilities that no one else has, so of course it happened. God can do anything, no matter how far-fetched.
Well, and that's it. Like, once you get to that conclusion, like, God's omnipotent, then it doesn't matter how ridiculous the story is. It's plausible. Like,
well, I want to get to that here in just a second. That is one thing I wanted to touch on in just a minute. But I did want to say, Zapostate also said it's easy to believe what is just told to you and harder to figure out the truth. Because, yeah, I can walk up and go, hey, there's a 80-foot snake in my backyard. Okay, you can either believe me or you can walk around the backyard and see if there's an 80-foot snake there. So, yeah, it
is what part of Australia you're in.
Well,
yeah, we're Aussies. We'll take that as read.
Yeah.
Actually, no, that's not true. Our snakes aren't big. They're just poisonous.
Yeah. See, and that's why I can't get Raven to go to Australia, because she says everything there wants to kill you.
Yeah, only, I think it's about 1.5 feet from a spider at any time in Australia. I think that's the it's the average. Like, it's not real, but like on average, that's what it works out.
It's not the spiders or the snakes you've got to worry about. I mean, realistically, the biggest issue we've got is probably the drop bears. They are absolutely horrible. They will get you, the drop bears.
Thick leathery hide that they just drop on you, and game over.
Those claws, the teeth, they're vicious.
Yeah, watch out for them drop bears.
And they seem to love American and Japanese tourists. I don't know why, but yeah.
It's because of I know for American, because it's all the fat and the sugar that we consume.
That'd be it.
Raven also wants to know how common are your flying foxes?
No, I wouldn't say they're common.
Nah.
There's a few flying foxes not too far from me. I'm from Queensland, though, closer to the tropical area. So I did used to live in a city up north where there was like full swarm, well, not swarms, what are they called? No, I'll just say swarms of them that would fly through the sky at night. So you could go out and just see them flying across to different trees and stuff. And God help you if you lived near a mango tree, because they would just crap all over your lawn. They're cute, though. Don't pat them, but they're cute.
God of Imagination said you guys are the worst at selling your home in.
Hey, Australia breeds hardy people. And look at the beaches. Like, we don't live in the bush. We live on the beaches. There's a reason for that. The conefish, the box jellyfish, the irukandji, the blue-ringed octopus, the sharks. What else? Only one of those is the most poisonous thing in the sea.
Anthony Bailey says, well, the Anunnaki reptilian overlords have been here for 480,000 years, so there goes the Christian creation down the drain. Anthony Bailey is one of the panel members on Going Critical. And then that's what they're doing tomorrow is the Anunnaki and the reptilian overlords and stuff. So that should be a fun one to watch.
We had that David Icke come out here not too long ago, and he was all over the. And they they interview him on every morning show and give him credibility, and far out, that dude he's special. Like, seriously.
Yeah. So getting back to what we were talking about, another thing I have a big issue with is if God, now this is, and you guys are going to pull some apologetics out here, so that's good, but if he is all powerful and all knowing and can do anything, why is there even sin to begin with?
Free will, because God doesn't want, he doesn't want robots. He wants people he can have a relationship with and can engage with. So he allowed us to have that free will, so he could have a genuine relationship. That's the apologetic version.
But if he knows all that ever was and ever will be, then what does it matter if we have free will or not? Because he already knows what's going to happen.
So, because God's ways aren't our ways, and it's not up to us as mere individuals to question what God's plan is. But look,
you got to say that with the voice of Brian Houston. Like
once you're up in heaven, at that point you can ask the Lord, and the Lord will explain everything to you. But you've got to make sure you get to heaven first. Hallelujah! Now, if everyone can just get out their credit card, fill in the slip. Sorry, I was really channeling Brian Houston there. But for those who don't know, Brian Houston is the founder of Hillsong Church, which Hillsong Church it's a huge Pentecostal mega church. They've got locations all over Australia. I believe
they're franchised now.
New York, Europe, and I believe they're continually going to number one in the American Christian charts. I mean, they're probably one of our biggest exports.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Hillsong like the NIFB?
They're not that.
They're not that bad.
I don't want to say that bad because badness is relative. They're not that upfront necessarily with their hellfire doctrine. They're much more focused.
They won't even touch on hellfire. It's essentially I guess a lot of it's probably very Joel Osteen, just without the blatantly obvious. I want your money. It's a lot of self-help and connecting communities, things along those lines. And
one of the ways that it would be referred to amongst other churches, and sometimes self-depreciatingly within my own church, which was the same brand of Christianity, is it's happy clappy Christianity. So you go there, there's lots of music, lots of singing, lots of hallelujahs and stuff. You get your dose of guilt in the prayer groups and the study groups and the stuff that happens outside of Sundays.
You normally get your dose of guilt just before they're asking for the offering and the tithe. That's normally they'll throw the little bit of guilt in there with the soft slow music, and then by the way, who can help and give us some money. Funny how they managed to work that in, but so Hillsong. So I back in my Christian days, I used to do a pretty mean Brian Houston impersonation, and apparently I still do.
Oh, it's obscene. Like, it's ridiculous.
I spent too many hours listening to that man. So,
if you guys could rewrite any part, just one part of Genesis, what would you rewrite and how would you change it?
Only one.
Well, obviously you want to rewrite the whole book, but still. That's why I tried to narrow it down a little bit.
If I was writing it to keep people engaged, I'd probably get rid of a lot of the begats. But
just edit it down, concise.
You would probably, if I was trying to do it to convince people it was true, I would probably try and fix a few of the issues that we know with modern science. So you might fix things like the timeline, maybe take it back 100,000 years. That's probably how I'd do it.
I reckon I would change the. What would I change? I don't know. I would probably change original sin. Like, take that out. Like, that's the idea that you become imperfect, broken humans. I would get rid of that. But that's me not trying to convince people. So
I'd probably change Eve to a guy called Steve, just so I could say, well, God created Adam and Steve. Like Adam and Eve.
Now,
just to really give it to them.
Oh, actually, the one man and one woman thing, that'd be a good change. Like, just to take it, you know. You want
more women, or because that is in the Bible?
It's just two people, two or more consenting people.
Yeah,
do it like that, or one or more consenting people.
Adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can't consent unless you're an adult, right?
Yeah.
Adults, yeah. Actually, no. Adults is a good point, given the way religions have, particularly Abrahamic religions, have treated children.
I was about to say, Muhammad and Aisha. There's your.
Now,
that'll be a fatwa.
God of Imagination said he would add dinosaurs.
Hey, they're in there. The Leviathan,
they are.
the Behemoth.
Yes, they were on the Ark. Haven't you been to the Creation Museum? Ken Ham said so.
Yeah. Zapaste said he would make the damn sun before the plants. For me, it's the. I would have to remove the entire flood narrative. I mean, for me, that is one of the biggest issues with Genesis, other than the original sin that I have, is because it makes no sense. And I can't even see how it made any sense during that time period. With the two of every animal and 8 people, and then drowning the world with water that came from nowhere, and then let's repopulate the entire planet with just these 8 people. It just wouldn't work. I mean,
we're actually taking 7 of the clean animals.
Oh, that's right. It was
yeah, 7 of the clean too. What I'm trying to work out is now we've got this animal called a wombat in Australia, and they are these small, fat, slow-moving, solid chunks of things.
And they are so
cute. Made of stone.
Yeah, I have absolutely no understanding, or I just refuse to believe that a wombat would travel 5 meters, let alone to Australia.
Yeah,
and they're too solid for the kangaroos to carry.
But they're marsupials, so like a baby wombat would be in the pouch of the kangaroos that were holding onto the log when they were swimming across to Australia. Because God, right?
Yeah. You know, Raven did make a good point with that story, is their whole world was in a small area, so it would have just been a few animal species. But it doesn't
or
work.
It didn't happen.
Yeah, or it didn't happen. But the whole narrative worldwide doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
No. Yeah, I mean, just the platypus. You're talking about wombats and kangaroos. Look at the platypus; it's only in one place. The Komodo dragons are found in only one place. There are so many species out there that are only located in one area, and there's no fossil records of them anywhere else. It just does not fit the whole narrative of that story. Aaron Ra has got a great, I believe it's an 8-part series on why the flood couldn't happen. He goes,
that's really good. That is.
Yeah, the cosmological stuff, the archaeological stuff, the rocks.
Geological.
Yeah, geological. It doesn't work.
That's one thing I love about the Grand Canyon is it kind of focuses all those discussions, because that seems to be the one area where it's like, if the creationists can prove the flood with the structure of the Grand Canyon being a result, that seems to be their like magnum opus. But at every turn, the Grand Canyon itself proves it wrong.
Yeah. But remember, though, the Grand Canyon was carved out by the giants to make the moon after they filled it with helium and sent it into the sky.
I was about to say, this is new to me, but this isn't a Christian conspiracy. This is a different one, isn't it?
I actually thought it was Lord Xenu's spaceship was firing at the escaped Thetans, and it sort of carved it out with the laser beams.
Well, that particular one comes from flat out Aussie Jesus. So.
Oh really? I've seen him a few times, but I haven't heard him.
That's been one of my favorite ones. It's just because the giants carved the Grand Canyon out, and that's what they made the moon with, and then they filled it with helium and set it up into the firmament.
I don't know how an Aussie can be a flat earther.
Oh no! Trust me, we've got him. We've got him.
I know we've got him, but like Australia is one of the places on the planet where the flight paths completely prove it. And I know this is completely off topic, but like the way we can get to South Africa and South America is just like not possible on a flat Earth. But anyway,
yeah, flat Earth is a whole different.
Frustrating.
Chris O in the chat says he would insert a preface. This is the work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and events and incidents are fictitious. Any resemblance of actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental.
That would be a nice insert. Yeah.
Or just cross out in the beginning and change it to once upon a time.
Yeah. Yeah, that would change the entire narrative of the entire book, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If you just changed them in the beginning to once upon a time, that whole book would take on a whole new meaning.
maybe that's how it originally was, but someone as a prank crossed that out, and it's just kind of been going ever since. Some goat herder who's still having a laugh somewhere.
What was I going to say? I lost track there again. I really wish I would have saved those notes. Raven said it would have changed the meaning of once upon a time.
Yeah, it probably would have. Then they'd be proving Cinderella was true.
No, that would just start with in the beginning, Cinderella was a goat.
Yeah.
True, yeah.
Actually,
I remember seeing on Facebook there was someone who was going around, and anytime they stayed somewhere, they'd cross out because the Gideons always put the Bible in the hotel rooms, and they'd cross out the in the beginning and write once upon a time. And I actually thought that was brilliant. I really did.
That is pretty funny. I've noticed more Book of Mormons being left in hotels too, actually.
Yeah,
well.
The Book of Mormon. That's just.
Now, I've got to say, that one is batshit crazy. Like the Book of Mormon, it's it's just such an obvious fraud.
Oh, the Book of Mormon musical is great.
Yeah, I saw that recently. It was great.
I've still got to say, I love the South Park episode they did.
Yeah.
Those guys, all about Mormons. It's probably still one of my favourite things on TV.
The musical is definitely worth seeing if you get a chance.
So Chris O just wrote Reformed Egyptian, and that's the imaginary made-up language that the Book of Abraham was supposedly written in the Book of Mormon. That turns out was fake.
I mean, that's the one that gets me the most with the Mormon. Is like they proved the founder was a fraud, and they still keep going with it. It's like your founder was a fraud. You proved he was fake, but you still believe it.
Well, see, I like the Book of Abraham, and what had happened, I guess, and I'll do this quick because it's a bit off topic, but the Book of Abraham. So there was a traveling antiquity seller back in whenever Joseph Smith was around, and the Mormon Church, or the early Mormon Church, bought these ancient hieroglyphics and like the papyrus scrolls. Joseph Smith went and translated it and said that's the Book of Abraham, and it had all these wonderful things in there. Actually, I think that's where we get the space station orbiting the planet Kolob. But anyway, they found after we found the Rosetta Stone, which meant that we could translate ancient Egyptian, they managed to find these scrolls, and it turns out they were actually burial rites for Ra. So and the Mormons brought it out and they said, this is going to prove us right. This is in the 60s, I think it was. Now this will prove it. This will prove we found these original papyrus, and this will prove that we were right all along. And when it was translated, no, it turns out it wasn't. So all of a sudden it became Reformed Egyptian.
The Reformed Egyptian. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, looking back on some of the stories here, like I said, we've already touched on just how they wouldn't actually pertain to what was going on. What do you think, or what would be your reasoning why these sheep herders or the early Jews would step away and create this new narrative away from the ancient Sumerians and the Egyptian religions? Do you guys have any thoughts on why another religion would be created from this? I'm knowing that with your guys' background, if you had a theory on why they would actually write the book of Genesis itself.
I think it was a historical deviation. So I think the archaeological evidence would indicate that pretty much every group in that area were polytheistic, and you can see that with a lot of you'll have no other gods and references to Baal and other, I guess, deities. But what tended to happen was individual tribes or groups would have a favoured god. So it's Athens, for instance, the Greeks, that was their favoured god was Athena. So that's sort of an example there. So they'd have the temple to that individual god. Now, Yahweh was the lightning god of the Hebrews, and lightning gods, as I sort of mentioned earlier, they were often seen as the more powerful ones. So that's the one that they latched onto. They probably had some success in military victories, and obviously ended up dominating the area. So their favoured god in particular took over and became the one true or the one powerful god. It's a similar thing with Islam. So Allah, he was the moon god of the Arabs. So that's why you always see the crescent moon depicting, in Islam. So it's all that happens is the one group that's following that individual god in that pantheon, I guess, dominates. So all the other gods get put to the wayside. And then the ancient stories are then, I guess, played with a bit to fit the narrative of that one god being the only god. Sorry,
I had some nerve damage in my face. It's just acting up on me here. Just give me just a second. Why don't you go ahead, Sam?
Yep, sure. So very similar, but one thing that I've found to be an interesting idea that I've sort of thought through for the last several years is the idea of terror management theory in terms of explaining cultural practices such as religion and society as a whole. The idea being that these ideas that form religions are a way of people managing their fear of death and a way of structuring society in a way that keeps people together to achieve prosperity and whatever outcomes that society seeks to achieve. And so you look at the idea of, I suppose it's more of a Christian idea of the afterlife with heaven and stuff, but you look at the idea of a God that is looking out and protecting you, it becomes easier to not have that nihilistic fear of death crippling you from being productive or being a engaged member of society. And that's why religions, and like this is just an idea that I'm playing with at the moment that I've heard. I haven't done the research. I'm not proposing this as this is a fact. But part of the reason why religions could potentially be malleable when it comes to splitting up from older religions and forming new variants is that there's a new group that wants to consolidate itself and to propagate into future generations. And so they make changes that fit their needs, their ideas about the world. and they borrow symbols from these existing things that already carry meaning and use that to express their new religion. You look at the idea of like dragons, for example. Like as soon as you say a dragon, all of us have an idea of what a dragon is, but you see how it's used to express different things in different communities, cultures, and stuff. Nice.
You can see it.
And so, yeah,
the dragon.
there's like a common language that particularly some of these old religions use, and people are just telling their own stories to help them work together as a community and manage the terror of death, so to speak. But that's an idea I want to play into a video and see how. Like, I've heard it a couple of times. I need to do the research, but I think it's an interesting thought anyway.
Another thing too is it's a great way to control the masses. So, say for instance you're the king, and you mightn't be a very popular king, but you've been put there by God. So, if there's no God or there's no that control mechanism isn't in place, what's to stop people from rising up and basically overthrowing you? If there's a threat of, well, if you do that, you're going to be tortured and tormented, and it's for generations down in the afterlife. Well, that can be a pretty big deterrent especially for people back in that period of time.
Well, like I said earlier, I had shingles last year on my face, so I got some. Every once in a while, the nerves right through here act up, so I apologize.
So at first I thought, hang on, I'm talking and he's face palming. What have I said?
No. I said I don't know.
I do get that a bit.
It's kind of hard to see, but you see the scar right there on the forehead.
Oh, yeah.
I got that, and then there's that little gold dot on my eye there. That's what I got left from the shingles. I mean, my face was just all. I look like the elephant man. It's horrible.
Damn.
Don't get shingles on your face. It sucks. I talking to Chris earlier, and he said, "Well, we're going to be here for a month." I mean, yeah, if we wouldn't book by book, story by story, yeah, we could be here for a while. So,
and the thing I was going to say, one thing to remember with Genesis as well is it's presented as one book in a modern context, but it's actually 5 individual books that were written, and historically that's how it was presented. But it suited the church and I guess the Jewish faith to merge it all into one.
So, what are the 5 books in? I know there's Genesis. Yeah,
it was just the first book of Moses, the second book of Moses. They didn't necessarily have titles, so when they wrote them, they were just on scrolls. So it was just a scroll
so it's not like
to Moses. Yeah,
you might be thinking of the Pentateuch, which is Genesis, Numbers, Exodus, Deuteronomy, and is it Judges?
No. The actual Genesis. Well, this is what I was taught. Genesis itself is actually 5.
Sorry, no, I was just referring. I was just saying that he might be thinking of the Pentateuch, which is the 5 books that from Jewish faith. But yeah, we haven't even touched on Isaac and Abraham.
Wasn't he a lovely guy, Abraham?
Hang on, just a second. You're saying we're getting some buffering issues. See if I can't fix that real quick here.
Could be an Australian thing. Don't forget we're coming from the other side of the planet.
Yeah.
Or the disc, one of the two.
Video.
It's not as far off not as far off where a disc, I don't think.
Yeah, true. Although we've got to reroute it through the NASA satellites.
Just bounce it off the dome.
Yeah, that's it. Probably make things easier.
Huh. Yeah, they're saying it's been buffering on and off the whole stream, but I'm not getting any notifications saying there's an issue. I've got no drop rate frame issues.
I've got it live down here just for the chat, and it does keep buffering, but I just assumed that was because I'm running this and a million other things.
Huh. Yeah, I wonder what's going on, because like I said, I'm not catching any buffering on my end.
Yeah, normally it'll tell you when you got drop frames and stuff on the streaming software.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm green on my end. It's green across the board. So we do got a couple of new people that popped in. Stoneheart Bread, which is Anthony Bailey again. He popped in under Stoneheart Bread. Purple Rhymes with Orange. Good to see you, Perp. Let's see. Stuck in Florida's joined us. Robert X. So thanks, guys. Thanks for showing up. There's back and forth some stuff going on. Not a whole lot there. So let's Abraham and Isaac, one of you guys mentioned that. When we touch up on that story a little bit. Now, isn't that the one? Like I said, my Bible history is not the greatest. Isn't that the one where Abraham was supposed to sacrifice his son? Is that the story you're talking about?
It was supposed to go and slay his son Isaac on the altar as an offering to God.
And he almost did it.
Now, what was the reason? Well, what is the what was supposed to be the purpose for that story? Is it for?
What I remember is that it was just to prove he was faithful. I don't remember another reason, which maybe my mind's slipping me, but that's usually how it's presented in the church as well. That to prove Abraham's faith, God tested him and told him to go and kill his son. I mean, they don't say kill his son; they try to dress it up and offer his son to the Lord and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, because he was so faithful. Yeah, because he was so faithful, he was the one who was essentially the founder of the religion. So, God said he'd have as many descendants as there were sands on a beach, and the two lines of Isaac and Ishmael, which is the Jewish line and supposedly the Arabic or Arabic line, comes from him. So that's where you've got the Muslims and the Jews both claim direct lineage. But it's presented in a way because for many years Abraham's wife Sarah was barren, couldn't have children. So it was when Isaac came along, it was a big blessing, and a big deal was made that he finally got his legitimate son. I think she was 90 when she had him. So I can't imagine a 90-year-old pushing out a baby in a tent in the middle of the Mesopotamian floodplains, but it happened apparently. So so that was it was because it was such a great gift that God had given, and the Lord can give and the Lord can take away. But because he was so faithful, he received all the blessings.
Because he didn't recognize a God that wanted him to kill a child to be a different God.
Can you just, on a side note, can you imagine if someone today said that they were about to kill their child because the voices in their head told them to do so, but then the other voice in their head stopped them at the last minute? If someone said that, they would absolutely be locked up.
Yeah, it's a lot of hallucinations and schizophrenia running around back then.
but then this guy is like so many of the horrible characters in the Bible, is presented as this great man of faith, and what an example we should all follow. And it comes back to the mental gymnastics that people of faith, Christians, Jews, Muslims, and amongst other religions too, where they've got similarly horrific stories. The actual backflip, or the leaps that they have to make, and how they have to juggle these things. It's looking back now. I mean, back when I was a Christian, I would very much take that as what a great story of faith. He proved his faith, and we should all show and prove our faith every day. Now I look back at it and just go, hang on, how the hell did I justify that? Like, if someone came and told me that in any other context, I'd be straight on the phone to the police or trying to say, like, I need to take your son away from you.
Yeah. Samson is he Exodus or is he Genesis?
Judges.
See, that's another. I know stories. I don't know where they're located.
So Samson, he's another classic example of a complete and utter dickhead. I mean, he loses a bet with someone, and because he lost the bet, he had to go and get 100 items of clothing. That was the bet. So rather than going to the market and buying it, he goes and kills 100 people so he could honour his bet. Well, that's Samson, the great hero Samson.
Yeah.
I just think of Conan the Barbarian.
It's Hercules. It's the Hercules narrative just pulled for the Christian religion itself. I mean, because you look at Hercules itself. I mean, his story was centered around what a true hero, what a true person Hercules was, for atoning for his misgivings. After Hera made him kill his wife and his kids, and this is what he did to atone. So they just pulled that into their to me, that they just pulled that into their narrative itself. Because I mean, it's one of those where you just go, that's another story they took from somewhere else. They just did their little tweaks to fit what their narrative was.
And look, it's quite possible that there was a judge called Samson who did exist and did rule over the ancient Hebrews for a period of time. But yeah, like you said, all they've done is then they've just transplanted one story, put it onto him, and that way it makes it very easy for when there's a similar story for people to say, "See, look, yes, it's our history too, and it was Samson."
Yeah,
we've got to be thankful though that we got the whole Jezebel thing for Christians to use. Like that's one good thing, right?
Let's see. Purple Rhymes with Orange says, "What if God had been distracted at the wrong moment and didn't tell Abraham not to do time that it was just a test and not to do it?" God of Imagination says, "Honey, you mean Huncules." Chris Catulsis says, "I'm sorry, Abe, but that wasn't supposed to happen. The bloody snake just wouldn't stop crying about having to crawl around, so it would have stopped you. Are we good now?"
Gotta watch those snakes.
Yeah. Now there's a thing. There's a thing. So in the original story, it was a serpent. When did the serpent take on the form of Satan?
I don't believe there's a case for that.
No, it's not Satan. The serpent it's a different character, because in the book of Job, which is obviously after Adam and Eve, Satan's there with God, and they're, I guess, having a wager. So it's obviously at that point they were still getting on. No, look, it's attributed to it's attributed to that, but theologically, no.
Okay, because I know theologically it's the serpent wasn't Satan, but you hear a lot of Christians in say that the serpent was Satan in disguise, and that's how.
Yeah. Most Christians don't understand their Bible. That's the problem. And I remember, and even when I have conversations with Christians now, most of them, they know the basic stories, but they've never actually sat down and read it or understand it. So even there's things like that. Even as far as what happened with Jesus. Most people know the love your neighbour, be kind to each other, and basically whatever they're preached or get preached on a Sunday, or the selected passages they want to pick for
them.
Yeah, there's a really easy test for the Satan being the serpent, and it's that in Revelation, Satan clearly has legs in some of the forms he takes, and that would make that would make Genesis wrong, where it said the serpent was cursed to slither on its belly. It's clearly talking about an animal that's talking, because it's trying to explain an animal that exists, which is what lends to it being a mythological piece.
It always says that always women and snakes will not like each other, and they won't get on. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with a YouTuber called Navadia and her snake Lucius.
Lucius.
We disproves the Bible there in one nice easy part.
Purple says in the Garden of Eden story, the snake was the only character who never lied.
Yeah, and told the truth.
Yeah.
God of Imagination says in lots of old paintings it shows a snake as a woman. So some theories are that it was meant to be Lilith but he goes, but that's just theology, mythology stuff.
That's where we get the
There's-
Lamia from.
Yeah, there's also a lot of women are often seen as the ones who instigated misfortune and badness, so they could be subjugated. It's women's fault that we fell out of Eden. It's men dominate it.
Well, I pick on Raven all the time because I tell her, I said, see, every story there's always a woman at fault. I get yelled at so much. Adam and Eve, Samson and Delilah. Let's see. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Purple. She was thinking that it's was a Naga, is where the image of the Naga comes from. Yeah, Raven's
A few of those out in World of Warcraft earlier today.
Did you? I played some WoW.
Oh yeah. Well, hang on. Well, okay. Now here's the important question though. Which side are you on?
Horde. For the Horde.
That's all right. For the Horde.
For the Horde. The Shaman.
Yeah, same.
Think about playing Final Fantasy later today.
I'm a Tauren shaman myself, so.
Pandarian Shaman.
Oh, okay.
So.
I'm a Makote, and I do lots of different things, but mostly Paladin.
Yeah, I do have a Dwarven Paladin and a Gnomish Mage, but for the most part, I'm always for the Horde.
Oh, you have to be.
Yeah.
It's more fun that way.
Yeah, Raven for the Horde. Purple says if women are evil, then evil is mighty tasty. Robert X. Robert X. WoW is great. Lagging is not.
We've got world-class internet here in in the alleged nation of Australia, so don't we?
I've got 100 meg up.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Allegedly, yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Yeah, because you guys don't.
I mean, it's weird. Like, yeah.
So, just a little off topic here, but kind of on the same topic. You guys had mentioned it in yesterday's stream a little bit, but with the United States being basically it's like 68% or something like that Christian, how is the Christianic faith and whatnot fall in Australia? I know you guys said it's not really big, but I mean, in terms of percentage wise, what do you guys think?
About 10% of Australians are church-going Christians.
Which is, the nominal Christians, which is Christians that identify but don't actively participate, is probably closer to 40%. I'm guessing then.
A lot of that's probably more cultural. Like it's people will identify as Anglican or Catholic based on family history.
They go at Easter, they go at Christmas. That's about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, growing up, we were always Anglican, so I'd go. We have scripture in schools here, where if you're religious, they come out and teach you scripture. So we were always Anglican, but I can pretty much guarantee that I think the only time my father ever set foot in a church was for my daughter's baptism.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but do you think that has anything to do with the fact that the Australians, not the Aboriginals, but the ones that came were sent for a penal colony? Do you think that has anything to do with it?
No.
I thought about that.
No. It's probably more due to we're very spread out. So you don't have it's not as easy access. So I guess say in the US, so you guys have got all the different, you've got the Midwest, all the different regions, everything in between. We're pretty much coastal. But no, it was only the first, probably the first 40 years of settlement that really any convicts were being sent out. I think the latest statistics show that 50% of Australians have a parent who was born overseas. So we're very much a migrant nation. We do have a lot of different cultures, but it's probably more to do with we've just got a very laid back attitude. It's, I guess in the US, you guys were, a lot of your early colonists were, the Puritans, I guess fleeing persecution and setting up, I guess a religious colony. So that's probably why in the States you've got it like that. But no, it's the convict thing in Australian history. It probably gets a lot more of a run than it does. It's, I mean, I think I can trace back to one ancestor from the First Fleet, which was the first convict ship that came in 1788, and that's going back through. Essentially, I probably have at that point, 200 ancestors when you go back to that era, and only one's come from the First Fleet. But that's my take on it. But no, it's. Sorry to knock that one on the head.
No. Like I said, I don't know much about Australian history, so it's.
That's what I'm doing my PhD on. Yeah. So Australian history in particular. So, it's. I'm playing. I keep saying I'm doing my PhD. I haven't started the PhD yet. I'm on a pathway that will begin with me doing the PhD, and we've even got sort of everything planned on even what the thesis will be on. But Australian history, that's my area of expertise, I guess, for lack of a better term, when I'm not discussing the Bible.
Let's see.
Which was completely off topic for what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, yeah, I even said it was going to be a little off topic here.
I think I just took it that one step further.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, what we got for comments? There's a kind of a nasty conversation going on between Anthony and Purple. I'm not going to go into that one. You want to read it? Go ahead and read the comments. Stuck in Florida.
You never read the comment section of a YouTube channel.
Yeah. Stuck in Florida said Britain sent a fair share of criminals over here to most. Yeah, sorry. My brain went all wonky. Britain sent a fair share of criminals over here too. Most of them were debt criminals and religious criminals. Which, they get them out of their country.
Well, the reason they had to start sending them to Australia was because you guys had a revolution, didn't you?
Yeah.
They couldn't dump us in America then.
They needed a new bit of land to go to.
Originally, it was meant to be New Zealand, funnily enough, that everyone was going to get sent to, but they changed it last minute because the botanist who came out with Captain Cook spoke about Botany Bay and how it was just the great land. It would be so fertile and the perfect place for a colony. When they actually arrived here, they discovered it was all sand, and they couldn't actually start a colony. So they had to then sail a few miles up and into what is now Sydney Harbour.
Chris from he's from the UK. Chris always says, I think the US people are more traditional leaning, where Australians are more progressive. He goes, that's his view from the UK.
It's interesting because I'm not sure that's necessarily the case. One thing, and this is my own perception of America, and it may be wrong, is that I think that the American culture, it really strongly hangs off like the Constitution in America. And so there's a lot less latitude for movement, and it feels like it makes people overvalue the ethics or the perceived religion of the founding fathers. Like I see a lot of stuff where people try and make the claim that, America's founded on Christianity, which, clearly has been demonstrated not to be the case, particularly with that pastor who burnt the book by, I forget his name, that wrote the founding myth. Whereas we don't have that narrative in Australia, so there's nothing for us to coalesce.
Sorry, excuse me 1 second, guys.
Yeah. No worries. There's nothing for the religious people in Australia to coalesce around to sort of point as that's the origin of our nation, and we need to, continue to put this up. So.
Okay, quick.
He's got his microphone.
Try not to stream because that'll.
Bobby says we Americans are just full of shit, plain and simple.
I mean, we're all full of shit. It's just different types.
It's just the depth that varies. Sorry about that. My the wife and kids just got home and forgot the front door key, so I've had to let them in. So if you hear any noise in the background, it's just a 9-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old who have just been out to see Santa and are all hyped up on lollies.
Oh, lucky.
So that's going to be a fun afternoon for me. Hopefully they sugar crash.
Oh, sugar crash! Yeah, it's still too much daylight out for you.
Well, it's what are we? We're 2:45 in the afternoon here tomorrow for you guys. And inside my house, it's 30 degrees at the moment.
I got the aircon on, thank God.
Yeah, so
I just had to turn my heater back on.
and just for those in America, 30 degrees is very hot.
Yeah, it's somewhat right around like 80 or something like that.
80, 90, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I think 40 degrees works out to be about 110 in Fahrenheit. But I don't know. Someone in the chat might have a converter, and if they feel the need, I guess you can work it out from there.
Home in here, I could ask it.
Well, it's we're pushing on the getting close to the 2-hour mark, so I think we'll start wrapping it up quick here.
Time flies when you're having fun. See, it's just like the old day for me. I spend 2 hours on a Sunday talking about the Bible.
Don't worry, you've got to go to night church too, right?
Yeah, of course. So the only thing I haven't done so far is
today. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well that's it, and that's the problem. When you're in leadership, you're expected to go to. See, the church I went to had 3 services, and you're expected to go to all 3 services. At 2 of them, you'd be actively doing something. So whether you were doing the tithe talk, or the altar call, or something along those lines, or in my case, I used to be part of the worship team, so I'd often get to sing, which I didn't mind. I actually enjoyed that, but. And then you're expected to go back again. So, there'd be the 9 o'clock, the 11:30, and then the 6 o'clock.
You're not expected to, you get to.
Well, that's it. It's an honour. So, yeah, see, you've got me on that.
Yeah.
I think that was said to me a few times too.
I'm pretty sure.
Especially when I had better things to do on a Sunday.
You don't have to come to church. You get to come to church.
That's it. And what a privilege that is.
Yeah.
Let's pray.
So
so a couple of hours talking about religion on a Sunday. It's like I've stepped back in time. I'll just if I can ask everyone for 10% of their income and guilt them into it, and ask everyone who's feeling the love of Jesus to put their hand up, then I think I can kick it all off.
You need a Patreon again.
I've got one. I just don't have any Patreons. I think I spend more money on Patreon than I'll ever get anyway.
Yeah, I've got 2 patrons. That's it. So, one of them doesn't count because she's my wife. So I pay myself.
I was going to say that's a good way to get your allowance from your wife.
Yeah, there you go.
Tell mine. I'll give her the link.
You're right, Bobby. She does count. I misspoke. That's true, because I apologize, Raven. You do count. It is actually her money, not my money. So,
if you've got one less Patreon, you'll know why.
Yeah, yeah. And Bobby's like, she does count more than the rest of us. It's true. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I'll let you guys. Good recovery. Let you guys chill yourself out a little bit, and then we'll wrap this up. So let's see. Who'd we start with? I think we started with Chris. So let's start with Sam.
Right. So, yep, Vagrant Sam. Obviously, you can find my YouTube link probably in the description, if not now, later.
Yeah, but I'll get that in there.
I swear to God, I will do a video today, because I haven't done one since I went on holidays, and I've come back and I was sick and then distracted, but yeah, so there's a couple of videos I want to get out, and hopefully I'll get one done today. So check it out, subscribe.
Let's throw your guys' link in the chat here real quick. Let me pull them up.
Be hoping to get 50 subscribers by the new year is my goal.
Nah, we'll push that.
Yeah.
We might do it. We'll do a subscriber drive on Friday night for you.
I've just got to get my discipline back. Like being on holidays, it sort of wrecks your thing, and like there's all these. So I have had it really tough lately because I've had to stay home, and I have some Warhammer miniatures I've been putting together. And I did that all day yesterday instead of because I was meant to do my video yesterday, and then today I've been spray painting them, and I've just got to stop doing that and make a video. So as soon as I do, I'll be on it. I've got some photos of edit, all sorts of stuff. Tough life.
Pastor
My cat's attacking my second monitor. She's seen the llamas in Minecraft. And it's her tail that's moving the screen at the moment because it's wagging while she's trying to get them. All right.
Bobby, I did not say she was my she slave. Don't get me in trouble. You guys' links are now in the chat. Please subscribe to these guys. They're really good people, both of them.
I'm okay.
There we go. All right.
Yeah.
I'm actually horrible. I just get really good guests on. So so I guess for me, I'm Atheist Pastor. So I'm still a little bit hard to find on YouTube because the words atheist and pastor and the algorithm give you a lot of options. I'm only a new YouTuber. I've been going for about a bit over a month now. But what we do is every Friday night in Australia, we do what we call Friday Night Six Pack, and that's where we get anywhere up to 6 different people and have a chat. We've been lucky enough to have Jay on for the last couple of weeks, and Sam's a regular there as well. So it's normally we just sit around, get pissed, and have a bit of a laugh at whatever's going on in the Christian and atheist worlds. But certainly a lot of fun. I tend to live stream more than anything. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at atheist_pastor. Look, if I guess my thing is I'm here to support anyone who's trying to get out of religion or has questions. So, I like to have conversations. I like to help people as much as I can. But I always say, look, if anyone wants to have a chat, even if you want to try and reconvert me and save my soul, talk to me.
I shouldn't laugh at that.
Or if you just want to hear me do a Brian Houston impersonation, I'm good for that too.
Okay, so there's that and there's that. I got your guys' in Sam. I will get your link put in the description.
All right.
But your link is in the chat. Make sure you subscribe to both of these gentlemen. They're really good people. I have been. Bobby says, I'm trying to get out of religion. Please send me $5,000 US. Thank you so much.
No worries. Give me your bank account details and we'll get onto that. And your password. I'll do a direct transfer right in there.
Bobby, yeah. Anyways, like I said at the beginning of the stream, and for those of you guys who were password D's nuts. At the beginning of the stream, this will be the last stream and video under the name of End the Conspiracy. I will be changing it to ETC with a lowercase t, so you guys know that. That's just hopefully it'll change up the YouTube algorithm, because you type in End the Conspiracy. Sometimes I show up first, other times it's a whole bunch of videos with conspiracy involved into it. So I'm going to be changing ET Sizzle. So I'll be changing that up. Like I said, I've already changed it on Twitter. I'll be getting things changed up. New intro, new Patreon name, all that good stuff. And it'll still be the same length in the Patreon. I'm just going to change the name on it. All the links will be the same, just basically name changes. Next Saturday, I want to throw out an invite to anybody that wants to come on. I will be covering what I feel is a very important topic, and that will be U.S. gun control. Anybody that wants in is more than welcome to join me. I'm hoping to get members from different countries to come in too, so we can see different perspectives, and than just the United States. Some of us from the U.S. If you're for gun control, against gun control, in the middle of it, doesn't matter what your stance is. I want to get people to talk about it. In just this last week alone, we've had 2 attacks on naval bases, one in Pensacola and one in Pearl Harbor, and we had another one, I believe, out in California. That's just the ones that I know about that I haven't even looked into it. So if anybody wants to join, either email me or DM me on Twitter. I got Zoom, so I can have up to 100 people on at one time. I don't expect that many because it'll be just a nightmare. But I am not going to close it off to a certain amount of people. If we do get a lot of people, then I'm going to have to moderate pretty well.
Just on that really quickly, the gun control laws you guys have got over there, it's always made me scratch my head. I can tell you in Australia, we had a mass shooting, I believe it was 95. We changed the laws, and we haven't had one since.
Yeah.
I probably won't be able to get on next week, but I guess I'll throw my 2 cents in on that one straight away. And even over here, the most staunch of conservatives won't align themselves with guns. So I think we had one of our truly crazy parties, a party called One Nation, and they're about as far right as it gets. There was a secret meeting a video that came out between them and someone from the NRA, and it absolutely destroyed them in the election.
Yeah, it didn't go well for them.
No, and their base is right-wing farmers in Queensland. So which is a bit like Texas, I guess.
I will be tweeting out about this. For those of you that do follow me on Twitter, it is @DarkerBrissinger. That's in the chat also. It's also scrolling across the bottom there on the ticker. And I'll be tweeting that out. Like I said, I'm opening this up to anybody that wants to come in. It doesn't matter what your stance is. It doesn't matter where you come from. I think this is something in the United States that really needs to be talked about. I'm not expecting to fix anything. I don't have that power. I don't have that reach. But I believe it is something that needs to be discussed. And the more we can discuss about it, hopefully it'll get out more and we can fix this. Because, I mean, it's just, like I said, in just this week alone, the ones that I have heard about, I haven't even looked into it. I have 3 just this week. So, I mean, and you, like you said, Chris, you guys have had, what, 1 since 95? And that was that one guy killing his family?
No, that was... No, so that doesn't even count as a mass shooting. That was a domestic...
A domestic disturbance, yeah.
That was very much a very domestic thing. That was just someone who... That was a horrific crime, but it wasn't a mass shooting. But no, it was the Port Arthur massacre. That happened back in 95. Mm-hmm. Our Conservative Party was in power at the time, and they changed the laws. The law, it had unilateral support from everywhere, and we haven't had a mass shooting since. We've got our gun crime is just non-existent. Well, not non-existent, but extremely low. It's pretty rare that you'll hear of a shooting. And if someone were to get shot, it would be huge news. Whereas I feel as though every day I turn on the news and there's another shooting in the US. I mean, it's I consider now I love my country, but without a doubt, the US is one of the greatest nations in the history of the planet. I mean, the cultural spread that you guys have, the influence you guys have, and I think just the nation itself, from what I can see, you're fantastic. But you guys are so wrong on gun control and healthcare. If you guys got that fixed, you're almost there.
Yeah. After the healthcare, that's a whole another ball of wax there. I say
that as someone who is I'm right wing, so I'm considered right wing in Australia. I'm a conservative. It just I scratch, and well, the rest of the world scratches their collective heads on that one.
I watched a video the day before yesterday, and there was some guy was talking to people from different countries, asking them about what they thought of certain prices for certain things in the U.S.
I saw that.
You seen that? The ambulance
Yep.
ride for $2,500, EpiPens for $700 or $800.
The what was it? Giving birth to a child,
Like 50
between
grand.
10 to 30 grand.
Yeah, 10 to 30 grand, something like that. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, then that's what happens when they let the medical care become privatized and whatnot. They'll blame it on insurance companies and malpractice suits, but no, it's bottom dollar is what it is. I mean, just look at the gentleman that the AIDS medication, or was it something like that, where it was at one point it was like $13 a pill, and he jumped it up to like $700 a pill. Just because he could. There was no reason behind it other than he could. Yeah. When Raven broke her leg, it was 30 grand to have a plate and pins put in.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It's 30 we had 30, yeah. Luckily
we do have private healthcare that will cover certain things or allow you to go into a private hospital. But look, even the worst of our hospitals are still pretty good. And having to pay what 10 to 15 grand, was it, to have a baby?
Yeah.
That's insane. I think the last kid we got a baby bonus from the government of $2,000. It was great.
Yeah. It's
and we spent it all and put the money back into the economy.
Yeah, it's the our healthcare system is horrible, but it's a whole another. We should do a topic on that. I do want to do a plug for Atheist Pastor's channel. Coming this Friday, we'll be going over one of our favorite people here on the channel, Call for an Uprising. If that's still the plan, right? I know that's what we talked about.
Jen sent me his video.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, bits and pieces. It was hard because what he's done is he's taken something that actually occurred and then put a complete twist on it to fit this weird narrative that he had. It was. I think I've got to go back and rewatch it and maybe check out some other stuff. I do remember like the story. I do remember when that happened, and I even know sort of where it was. It was they weren't allowed to release the location there for a while. It was sort of under court order, but it actually happened in my state. But that is the plan at this stage.
Yeah,
so
it may change. Like I said, a Call for an Uprising. He is hard to swallow. So if we don't do that video,
not wrong.
Yeah, if we don't do that video, I'm really not. I don't have an issue with that.
There's one thing I can guarantee, and that's that you will have anywhere of up to 6 people sitting around on what is about 6 or 7 in the morning for
Eastern
the US,
time.
Eastern time. So even worse west, but basically hitting the drink, and it starts off okay and gradually gets worse. So I felt a bit sorry for
Jen.
For Jen from Jen's
so
Little
drunk.
Corner. I was going back and editing some of it to do some shorter clips.
146, 148, 153.
Oh yeah. Actually, right at the end, Jen, she sort of got the head down like that.
Yeah.
I think she's lamenting that she shouldn't drink so much, and I thought this is going to be a good clip for next week. But, could be a good way to start it. But no, look, it's
last time on Six Pack.
Yeah. So Friday night Six Pack's a bit of a. It's just basically it's a casual sit around. We have a couple of drinks. It's Friday night our time, and we just talk. Last week we covered the proof of the resurrection in 5 minutes from a guy called Kyle Bailey, and his 7-minute video. I think we spent 2 hours just continually stopping, poking fun at, and just basically having a chat. So we had a lot of fun, and I guess the more people that can jump in, the merrier. And look, if anyone's interested in jumping on with us, we're always after some different accents. It just doesn't have to be drunken Aussies. And Jay, he's an honorary Aussie, so we'll count him. So if there's anyone else who's come along, have a look, and we're always looking for people.
Yeah, it's a good time. Like I said, you guys should go back and watch the one from Friday, because Jen was just hilarious. The drunker she gets, the funnier and more ranty she gets. It was so much fun.
Her rants are epic.
Yeah, Nacha jumped in for a little bit, so yeah, it was good. So just so you guys don't freak out, we will be going back to talking about stupid videos. Just this topic and the one next week are ones I've been wanting to do, and I thought this was a good topic to introduce everybody to Chris and Sam, some new creators and with some good stuff. I would recommend you everybody make sure you go and sub to both of these guys. They're really good people, and they got some good knowledge. So I mean, besides you get to watch when Sam's on, you get to watch Minecraft in the background.
I'm playing around with my backgrounds for the live chats, so we'll see what else I can think of.
So I've just got something up covering the mess in my kitchen. So
yeah.
So I think with that we'll shut her down. Thanks everybody for coming. Hope if you didn't know, I hope you learned some stuff. One last comment from the chat. Raven says anyone who becomes a patron of mine is automatically set free from all Christian hangups. So,
and I'll throw the tithe talk in there, and I would encourage anyone who can spare even $1 a month. I think every little bit helps. So if you enjoy Jay's content, and you can afford even $5 a month, that's one coffee a month.
Yeah.
So if you want to sacrifice one coffee a month and help a really good YouTuber get more content out there, I definitely encourage you to do that.
And I do have different tiers, which the tiers will be changing when I change everything else up. But right now they're set at $1, $6.66, $13, $33, and $100. But like I said, it's your money. You do with your money as you will. If you
cheaper
want
than Netflix subscription.
Yeah. So
and much better value.
So thanks everybody for coming. I appreciate it, and we'll see you guys in the next one. See you guys all later.
Thanks everyone.
See you guys.
Thanks for taking the time to watch this clip. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Don't forget we've got more shows coming up this week. On Wednesday nights, we have Conspiracies with Jay. And of course, we've got Friday Night Six Pack every Friday, 10 PM Australian, 8 AM US. Thanks for watching.